It was raining the night my daughter came home. Not a soft rain, but the heavy, drumming kind that fills the gutters and blurs the windows into running glass. I almost didn't answer the door. It was past 9, and I was already in my dressing gown, and I thought it must be the wind rattling the latch, the way it does on wild nights. But the knock came again, softer this time, almost afraid. And when I opened the door, there she was, my Hannah, my only daughter whom I had not seen nor spoken to in 5 long years. Standing on my step in the pouring rain, soaked through, her eyes full of everything we had never said, and holding her hand, half hidden in the folds of her wet coat, was a small child. A little girl, perhaps 4 years old, with Hannah's dark eyes and my own mother's stubborn chin, looking up at me from under a dripping hood. "Mum," Hannah said, and her voice broke on the single word. "Mum, this is Lily, your granddaughter. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I never told you." I stood in the doorway with the rain blowing in around my ankles, looking at a grandchild I had never known I had, and I felt my heart do something I cannot quite describe. It broke, and it healed in the very same instant. But that, my dear listener, is the very beginning. And the rest of this story is soft and slow and warm, and it is exactly the kind of story to fall asleep to. So let yourself settle now. Let the pillow cradle your head. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing slow. Let the whole long day loosen its grip and slip away. There is nothing for you to do but listen and drift, and let this gentle story carry you down into a deep and peaceful sleep. Let me tell you how it all began and how it all came right. 5 years before that rainy night, my daughter and I had argued. I will not pretend it was anyone's fault, but both of ours, in the way that the worst arguments always are. She had been seeing a young man I did not trust. I said things a mother should perhaps think, but never say. She said things back. And then, instead of the storm blowing over the way our storms usually did, this one simply froze. It hardened into silence. And the silence stretched out, a week, a month, a year, until it became a wall so high and so cold that neither of us knew how to climb back over it. I wrote letters I never sent. I picked up the telephone 100 times and set it down again. Pride is a terrible thing, you know. It dresses itself up as dignity, and it keeps you warm for an evening, and it costs you years. I told myself she would come back when she was ready. I told myself I was giving her space. But the truth, the quiet truth I only admitted to myself on the longest nights, was that I was afraid. Afraid that if I reached out, she would not reach back. And so I did not reach at all. 5 years, 5 birthdays I did not share, 5 Christmases with one less place at the table. And I would soon learn the first 4 years of a little girl's life, entirely unknown to me. Breathe in now slowly and let it go. There is no ache in this story that the ending does not soothe. I promise you that. You are safe to simply rest and listen and let the warmth of it carry you. I brought them in out of the rain, of course. Whatever lay between Hannah and me, there was a child shivering on my doorstep, and a grandmother's arms know what to do, even when her heart is still catching up. I wrapped little Lily in the big soft towel from the airing cupboard, the one warmed by the boiler, and I sat her by the fire, and I watched her small face as she looked around my old front room with wide and solemn eyes. I made her warm milk with a little honey in it, in the blue cup that had been Hannah's when she was small, though Lily could not know that. And I found, at the back of the tin, the last of the shortbread, and she ate it very seriously, brushing the crumbs into her little hand, and the firelight danced on her face. "Are you my Nana?" she asked me, in the clear, unguarded way that only small children have. And I had to kneel down so she would not see the tears, and I said, "Yes, my darling. Yes, I am your Nana. I have been your Nana all along. I just didn't know where you were." She thought about this very seriously, and then she said, "We came on 2 buses and a train," as though that explained everything. And in a way, it did. While Lily dried by the fire, Hannah and I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we had eaten 10,000 ordinary breakfasts before the silence. And slowly, haltingly, she told me everything. The young man I had not trusted was long gone. It turned out, before Lily was even born. Hannah had raised her alone in a small flat in a city 200 miles away, too proud and too ashamed and too hurt to come home. She had been waiting, she said, until she had made something of herself, until she could arrive as a success rather than a failure. And then, that very week, she had lost her job. And sitting in that small flat with the rent due and her little girl asleep, she had finally understood that there is no shame so great that it is worth another year of missing your mother. So she had packed 2 bags and taken Lily's hand and come home. 2 buses and a train through the pouring rain, not knowing if I would even open the door. "I didn't know if you'd want us," she whispered. And I reached across that old familiar table and I took my daughter's hand, the way my own mother once took mine, and I said, "Hannah, there has not been a single day in 5 years that I did not want you. I was just too frightened to say so. We were both too frightened. And look what it cost us. We cried then, the both of us, but it was the good kind of crying, the kind that washes something clean. We talked late into the night, long after Lily had grown heavy-eyed by the fire. We did not solve everything. You cannot unmake 5 years in a single evening, and we did not try. But we lit a small lamp in all that darkness, and we agreed, without quite saying it, to keep it burning. Let your eyes close now, if they are not already closed. Let my voice be the only thing you follow, soft and low, down into the warm dark. That night, I made up the spare room, the one that had been Hannah's childhood bedroom, though it was a sewing room now. We laid little Lily down in the middle of the big bed, and she was asleep before her head had quite settled on the pillow. One small hand curled beneath her cheek. Hannah and I stood in the doorway and watched her sleep, the way mothers have stood and watched their sleeping children since the beginning of the world. She has your chin, I whispered. She has your stubbornness, Hannah whispered back. And we both had to press our hands to our mouths to keep from laughing and waking her. They did not leave in the morning, nor the morning after that. The days that followed were some of the sweetest of my life, and the gentlest, and I will give them to you now, one soft moment at a time, to carry you down into your own sleep. Lily discovered the garden. She was a city child, and she had never had a garden of her own, and she fell upon mine with pure astonishment. She named every snail. She made a fairy house under the hydrangea out of twigs and pebbles, and she visited it each morning to see if the fairies had been. She picked great fistfuls of dandelions and presented them to me as though they were roses, and I put every one of them in a jar on the windowsill, because to her they were treasure, and so to me they were too. I taught her things the way I had once taught Hannah. How to crack an egg with one hand, mostly badly. How to whistle through a blade of grass. How to know when a strawberry is truly ripe by its smell and not its color. There was a morning early on that I shall keep in my heart until the day I die. Lily wanted to feed the robin, so we stood very still by the garden wall, and I showed her how to hold the crumbs flat on her open palm, and to wait, and to be patient, and to be quiet. And she stood there, my small, fierce granddaughter, holding her breath, holding her hand out for the longest time. And then the robin came. He landed on her fingertips, light as a falling leaf, and took a single crumb and was gone. And Lily turned to me with her whole face shining, too full of wonder even to speak, and I thought my old heart would simply burst with the joy of it. And in teaching the granddaughter, I found I was slowly mending things with the daughter. We did not need to dig up every old hurt and lay it out between us. We simply lived, side by side, in the small, warm rhythm of ordinary days, and the living healed what words might only have reopened. We cooked together, the three of us. Hannah remembered things her hands had not forgotten. The way you fold the flour, the way you test the jam on a cold saucer. Lily stood on a chair to stir, with a tea towel tied round her like an apron, dusted to the elbows in flour, and the kitchen filled up with warmth and steam and the smell of baking, and with something else, something I had not had in that house for 5 long years. The sound of my family in it. Breathe softly now. In, slow and warm, and out, slower still. Feel how heavy and peaceful your body has become, how completely the bed holds you, so that you need hold nothing at all. In the evenings, after Lily's bath, she would climb into my lap by the fire and ask for a story. Not from a book. Tell me a real one, she would say. Tell me one about when Mummy was little. And so I did. I told her about the time her mother got stuck up the apple tree and would not be coaxed down for an hour. I told her about the blanket fort and the imaginary dog named Biscuit, and the summer it rained so hard we sailed paper boats down the garden path. And Hannah would sit nearby with her tea, listening to her own childhood being given, like a gift, to her child. And sometimes she would add a piece I had forgotten, and we would build the memory together, the three of us, in the firelight. The weeks softened into months, the way they do when a house is happy. The wild edge of those first days, the rawness of so much feeling, smoothed itself down into something steadier and sweeter. The simple music of an ordinary life. There came a morning when Lily started at the little village school, just down the lane, the very same school her mother had once run to, with her satchel banging against her knees. We walked her there together, Hannah and I, one on each side, holding a small hand each. And Lily was so brave, so impossibly brave, marching in under the low stone porch in a cardigan, a size too big. And when she was safely inside, Hannah and I walked home the long way, past the duck pond and the war memorial, in no hurry at all. And we talked, really talked, the way we used to before the silence, before the wall. Let the warmth of it hold you now, dear listener. Breathe in, slow and deep, and let it go soft and long. Feel the bed beneath you, holding you completely, and let yourself grow heavier with every breath. The seasons turned over the cottage, gentle as a page. The summer faded into a soft copper autumn, and Lily learned to kick through the fallen leaves and to gather conkers in her pockets until they bulged. We made blackberry jam from the brambles in the lane, the three of us, our fingers stained purple, the kitchen sweet with the smell of it, and we lined the jars up on the shelf like small jewels holding the last of the sun. And one bright cold Saturday, we drove to the sea. Lily had never seen it. She stood at the edge of the great gray water with her Wellingtons on and her hood up, perfectly still, the way she had stood for the robin too full of wonder even to speak. And then she ran at the waves, shrieking with joy, and Hannah ran after her, and I stood on the shingle watching my daughter and my granddaughter chase the foam in the winter light, and I thought my heart had never in its life been so full. That night, both of them asleep under my roof, salt still in their hair, I sat by the dying fire, and I gave thanks quietly to whatever it is that watches over us, for a knock on a rainy door. There came an evening a few weeks later when the three of us sat together at the kitchen table for supper. The lamp was lit. The rain had long since passed. Lily was telling some enormous and impossible story about a snail named Gerald, who, it seemed, had a house and a hat and strong opinions about lettuce. And Hannah was laughing, really laughing, in a way I had not heard in 5 years. And I sat at the head of my own table, with my daughter on one side and my granddaughter on the other. And the empty places that had ached for so long were quietly, gently full again. I thought then of all the years I had lost to pride and to fear, and I felt the grief of them. I will not pretend otherwise. But I felt something larger, too. I felt how foolish it would be to spend even one more evening mourning the years that were gone, when here, right here, at my own warm table, were the years that were still to come. Hannah and Lily live with me now. The sewing room is a proper bedroom again, painted pale yellow, with a row of Lily's drawings taped to the wall and a nightlight shaped like a little moon. Hannah has found work in the village, at the flower shop, of all the perfect places, and she comes home each day smelling faintly of freesias, and a little of her old brightness has come back, more of it every week. And I am a Nana. After all those silent years, I am a Nana, with sticky little handprints on my windows, and a fairy house under the hydrangea, and a jar of dandelions forever on the sill, and a small warm body that climbs into my lap at story time and says, "Tell me the one about when you were little." We very nearly lost it all, my daughter and I, to a silence that neither of us truly wanted. I think about that sometimes, in the quiet of the evening, when the house is sleeping, and only the fire is awake. How close we came. How a single knock on a rainy night gave us back everything we had so very nearly thrown away. So if there is someone you have not spoken to in too long, someone whose silence aches in you on the longest nights, perhaps let this be the gentlest of reminders. Pride is a cold companion, and it is never, ever too late to open the door. But not tonight. Tonight there is no door to open, no letter to write, no wall to climb. Tonight there is only your warm bed, and the soft dark, and the slow, safe tide of your own breathing carrying you down. Breathe in soft and slow, and out softer still. Let the next breath be gentler than the last, and the one after gentler still. You are safe. You are warm. You are loved more than you know and more than was ever said. Rest now. Sleep now. I will keep the fire lit and the door unlocked and a warm towel from the airing cupboard ready for whenever you need somewhere gentle to come home to. Good night,